Alex walks into a grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon with a mental list. Milk, eggs, bread, chicken, some vegetables, the basics, nothing fancy. No filet mignon, no organic acai berries flown in from Brazil, just regular food for a regular week. He walks out 53 minutes later, having spent $817. He sits in his car, staring at the receipt, trying to figure out what just happened. This wasn't supposed to be possible. This was supposed to be $200, maybe $250 if he splurged. But $800 for 1 week of groceries? Welcome to the math that doesn't math anymore. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Your grocery bill isn't just higher than it used to be. It's structurally broken in a way that can't be explained by simple inflation. And if you've been standing in a checkout line recently, doing that quiet calculation in your head where you're genuinely shocked by the total, you're not imagining it. Something fundamental changed, and it happened so gradually that most people missed exactly when the floor fell out. Let's rewind to 2019. Not that long ago. Alex could do a full grocery run for a family of 4 and spend around $400 every 2 weeks. That's about $100 per person per week. Reasonable, manageable, the kind of number that felt normal. Fast forward to today, that same cart costs roughly double. And before you say inflation, pause, because the official inflation numbers say food prices have gone up about 28% since 2019. 28, not 100. So where's the other 72% coming from? This is where it gets interesting, because you're not crazy. The numbers genuinely don't add up. And the reason why involves a perfect storm of corporate strategy, supply chain rewiring, and a psychological trick that's been playing out in slow motion across every aisle of every grocery store in the country. Start with the basics. Food pricing used to work like this. A farmer grows tomatoes, sells them to a distributor sells to a grocery chain marks it up and sells to you. Simple. Chain. Multiple players. Competition at each level, keeping prices somewhat honest. But over the last 15 years, that chain consolidated. Fewer distributors, fewer suppliers, fewer grocery chains controlling more stores. By 2025, 4 companies control over 65% of all grocery sales in America. 4. And here's what happens when you have that level of concentration. When the entire system has a moment of chaos, like say a global pandemic, the companies with power don't just raise prices to cover costs. They raise them because they can. Because what are you going to do? Not eat? In 2021 and 2022, while supply chains were legitimately disrupted, something else happened quietly underneath. Profit margins at major grocery retailers hit record highs. Not record revenue, record margins, meaning the percentage they were keeping after costs was bigger than it had ever been. They called it inflation. Technically it was, but it was also opportunistic repricing across the entire industry at once. And once prices went up, they never came back down. Let's break down that $800 cart Alex just bought, because this is where the magic trick happens. Eggs. He bought 2 dozen. 10 years ago, that would have been maybe $6. Today, it's $15. You might say bird flu, supply issues, sure, except the profit per carton for egg producers is also up 43% in the same window. Funny how that works. Meat. A pack of chicken breasts, 4 pounds, used to be $12, now it's $31. Meanwhile, the price paid to chicken farmers has barely moved. The markup is happening somewhere in the middle, silent and invisible. Produce, tomatoes, lettuce, onions. These used to be the cheap staples. Now a bell pepper costs $2.50, 1 pepper. The reasoning given is fuel costs, transportation, labor. And yes, those things are real, but when you actually run the numbers, transportation accounts for maybe 11% of the final price, not 50%. Here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. Shrinkflation. You've probably noticed it. The cereal box is taller but thinner. The ice cream container has a divot in the bottom. The bag of chips is mostly air. Companies discovered they could reduce the amount of product while keeping the package size and price the same. You're paying the same for less, and your brain doesn't register it because the box looks identical. A study in early 2025 found that over 4,200 products had quietly shrunk in size while maintaining or increasing price. 4,200. This isn't a few bad actors. This is industry standard practice. So when Alex spent $800, he didn't just pay more per item, he got less per item. Double hit. Now add the anchoring effect. This is where it gets almost beautiful in its cynicism. Grocery stores started putting expensive organic and premium options right next to the regular product. Not because they expect you to buy them, but because when you see a $14 carton of organic eggs next to the $9 conventional ones, $9 suddenly feels reasonable. It's not, but it feels that way. Your brain anchors to the highest price in the category, and everything else becomes relative. This is pricing psychology 101, and it works. They also spread staples throughout the store. Milk in the back, eggs on one side, bread on another. You have to walk past hundreds of other products to get the basics. Impulse purchases add 30 to 40% to the average cart. That's not an accident, that's architecture. Alex went in for 50 items. He left with 73, most of which he didn't plan to buy. He'll tell himself he needed them, but the store layout made sure he saw them at exactly the right moment when his willpower was lowest. The industry narrative is consistent. Costs are up, we're just passing them along, barely making anything. It's inflation, supply chain, Ukraine, bird flu, weather, labor. And yes, all of those things are real factors, but let's look at the actual financial disclosures. Kroger, one of the largest grocery chains in America, reported a gross profit margin of 24% in 2024. That's up from 21% in 2019. Their net income was $4.3 billion with a B. Albertsons reported similar numbers. Walmart's grocery division saw profit increases despite claiming razor-thin margins. These aren't struggling businesses barely staying afloat. These are highly profitable corporations that discovered a pricing environment where consumers had no choice but to accept increases, and they optimized accordingly. Meanwhile, the average American family now spends 18% of their income on food. In 2019, it was 12%. That 6% shift might not sound like much until you realize for a household making $60,000 a year, that's $3,600 additional dollars going to groceries. $3,600 that used to go somewhere else. Savings, debt repayment, literally anything else. Here's where this stops being about groceries and becomes about something larger. When the cost of basic necessities rises faster than wages, people make adjustments. They trade down, buy cheaper cuts of meat, skip fresh vegetables, load up on processed foods because they're cheaper per calorie. And that shift has health consequences that show up years later in the form of diet-related diseases, which creates medical costs, which creates another affordability crisis. It's a cascade. Credit card debt hit record levels in late 2024 and continues climbing. A lot of that is groceries. People are financing food, not vacations or electronics. Food. Let that sink in for a second. The thing humans need to survive is now something Americans are borrowing money to afford. And it's not just low-income families. Middle-class households are feeling this in real time, at the most fundamental level. There's also a trust problem brewing. When people feel like they're being gouged on basic necessities, when the math stops making sense, when a bag of groceries costs what a car payment used to cost, something breaks in the social contract. The system starts feeling rigged, because maybe it is. So what happens next? One possibility is competition eventually returns. New players enter the market. Prices stabilize. The invisible hand does its thing. That's the optimistic view. The pessimistic view is that this is the new normal. that the consolidation is too far gone, that the companies setting prices have no incentive to lower them because demand for food is perfectly inelastic. You can't just stop eating. They know it, you know it, and the math reflects it. There's also a regulatory angle. Some lawmakers have proposed windfall profit taxes on grocery chains or increased antitrust enforcement to break up the consolidation. But that requires political will in an environment where these companies spend hundreds of millions on lobbying. So, in the meantime, Alex will go back to the grocery store next week. He'll try to be more careful, make a stricter list, avoid the impulse buys, maybe try a discount chain. And he'll still walk out having spent more than he planned, because the system isn't designed for him to win, it's designed for him to accept. The $800 grocery bill isn't a bug, it's a feature. The question isn't whether you've noticed your grocery bill creeping up. You have.
Everyone has. The question is what you're going to do with the anger that comes from realizing it's not actually about inflation. It's about leverage, and you don't have any.